After 60, your body doesn't just age, it reorganizes. Bone density shifts, balance receptors dull, circulation slows, and inflammation quietly climbs. In the United States, nearly 1 in 4 adults over 65 will fall this year, and roughly half of those falls will lead to a fracture or a trip to the emergency room. Meanwhile, in certain regions of Japan, seniors in their 70s and 80s move through their days with a steadiness and vitality that seems to defy the calendar. They're not relying on expensive supplements or high-tech gadgets. They're practicing 6 daily rituals, most of which you've probably never heard about, that keep their joints supple, their minds sharp, and their independence intact. What makes these rituals so powerful isn't just tradition. It's the way they stack biology, movement, and habit into a sequence that protects the body where aging hits hardest. The 6th ritual on this list is so simple you can start it tonight in under 3 minutes. Yet it rewires balance and circulation in ways that pharmaceutical interventions struggle to match. But it's the first ritual, the one Japanese seniors do before their feet even touch the floor each morning, that holds the most transformative potential. It takes less than 90 seconds, requires no equipment, and addresses the single greatest predictor of frailty in people over 60. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, let me ask you this. Where are you watching from today, and are you over 60 or caring for someone who is? Drop your age and location in the comments. I'd love to know who's here. Let's start with ritual number 6, the one that happens in the final hour before sleep. In Japan, it's called Ashiyu, which translates simply to foot bath. But this isn't about pampering. It's about circulation, temperature regulation, and the autonomic reset that governs how deeply you sleep and how steady you feel the next morning. After 60, your peripheral circulation weakens. Blood doesn't reach your feet and lower legs as efficiently, and that stagnation contributes to cold extremities, restless legs, poor sleep, and even dizziness when you stand. A warm foot bath, held at a consistent temperature for 10 to 15 minutes before bed, dilates blood vessels in the feet and lower legs, pulling blood downward and relieving the heart of some of its workload. It also triggers a gentle drop in core body temperature after you step out, which is one of the most reliable signals for deep sleep. Research from sleep medicine centers has shown that even modest warming of the extremities before bed can shorten the time it takes to fall asleep and increase the duration of slow-wave sleep, the phase where tissue repair and immune function peak. In some controlled observations, people who used a warm foot soak reported fewer nighttime awakenings and better morning balance scores compared to those who went to bed without any thermal intervention. The effect isn't dramatic in one night, but over weeks it compounds. Your sleep deepens, your morning stiffness eases, and your risk of that first step stumble drops. I worked with a woman named Helen, 72, a retired postal clerk from Virginia who had been waking up 3 or 4 times a night for years. Her feet were always cold, even under heavy blankets, and she'd grown afraid of getting out of bed in the dark because twice she'd felt dizzy and had to grab the wall. We started her on a nightly Ashiyu routine, just a plastic basin, water kept around 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and 15 minutes of soaking while she read or listened to music. Within 2 weeks, she was sleeping through most nights. Within a month, her morning dizziness was gone, and she told me she felt safe enough to walk to the bathroom without turning on every light. That's the power of a ritual that costs almost nothing and asks for less than 20 minutes. Here's how you do it. About an hour before you plan to sleep, fill a basin deep enough to cover your ankles with water that feels warm but not scalding, somewhere between 100 and 105 degrees. Sit comfortably, feet submerged, and let the warmth work for 10 to 15 minutes. If the water cools, add a little more hot water halfway through. When you're done, dry your feet thoroughly, especially between the toes, and put on clean socks. The cooling phase that follows is what primes your body for sleep, so don't skip the socks. If you have diabetes or neuropathy and can't reliably sense temperature, test the water with your hand or a thermometer first and keep the session closer to 10 minutes. This isn't a soak you do once in a while. It's a nightly signal to your nervous system that the day is over and repair can begin. Now let's move to ritual number 5, the one that happens in the middle of the day and almost no one outside Japan talks about. It's called Rajio Taiso, which means radio calisthenics, and it's a short sequence of dynamic stretches and joint rotations broadcast over the radio every afternoon at 3 o'clock. Millions of Japanese seniors stop what they're doing, stand up, and move through the sequence together. But the genius isn't in the exercises themselves, it's in the timing and the interruption. After 60, prolonged sitting is one of the fastest routes to stiffness, blood sugar spikes, and cardiovascular stress. Your hip flexors tighten, your thoracic spine rounds forward, and circulation to your legs slows to a crawl. A 3-minute movement break in the mid-afternoon, timed consistently every day, reverses that cascade before it locks in. The sequence used in Rajio Taiso involves arm circles, gentle torso twists, knee lifts, and shoulder rolls, all performed standing and all moving through a full range of motion without strain. It's not about intensity. It's about keeping every major joint mobile and reminding your nervous system that standing upright and moving in multiple planes is still safe. Studies on sedentary behavior in older adults have found that even short activity breaks, as brief as 2 to 3 minutes, can lower post-meal blood sugar and reduce markers of systemic inflammation when repeated daily. In some analyses, people who interrupted sitting every 2 to 3 hours had significantly lower rates of mobility decline over 5 years compared to those who sat for longer continuous periods. I guided a man named Robert, 68, a retired engineer from Ohio who spent most of his afternoons at his computer working on model trains. He'd developed a deep ache in his lower back and hips that no amount of stretching at night seemed to touch. We introduced a daily 3 o'clock movement break, just a simplified version of Rajio Taiso. No music, no radio, just a timer on his phone and 6 movements. Arm circles forward and back, torso twists with hands on hips, marching in place with high knees, shoulder shrugs, side bends, and gentle squats holding the edge of his desk. 3 minutes every day, same time. Within 10 days, his back pain had dropped by half. Within 3 weeks, he stopped needing his afternoon ibuprofen, and he told me he felt looser getting out of his chair at the end of the day than he had in years. Here's your protocol. Set a daily alarm for mid-afternoon, somewhere between 2 and 4 o'clock, a time when you're usually sitting or standing still. When the alarm goes off, stand up and move through 6 simple exercises, 10 repetitions each, no rest between. Arm circles, torso twists, marching in place, shoulder rolls, side bends, and a gentle squat or knee bend if your balance allows. If standing feels unsteady, do the sequence seated, but keep the movements dynamic and full range. The entire sequence should take 3 minutes, and you should feel warm but not winded when you finish. This isn't a workout. It's a reset. Do it every day, same time, and your body will start to expect it and respond faster. Let's talk about ritual number 4, the one that happens right after breakfast and protects your gut, your immune system, and your mood in ways that most people don't connect until it's too late. In Japan, it's called Umeboshi, which means salted plum, and eating 1 small pickled plum after your morning meal is a practice that goes back centuries. But this isn't about folklore. It's about acidity, probiotics, and the gentle stimulation of digestive enzymes at a time of day when your gut is most receptive. After 60, stomach acid production declines, pancreatic enzyme output drops, and the microbial diversity in your intestines shrinks. That triad leads to bloating, constipation, nutrient malabsorption, and a steady rise in systemic inflammation that accelerates frailty. Umeboshi is intensely sour and salty, and that sharpness triggers saliva production and the release of gastric acid and bile, essentially priming your digestive system to break down and absorb the nutrients from the meal you just ate. The plum itself is fermented, so it delivers a small dose of beneficial bacteria and organic acids that support gut lining integrity. Research on fermented foods and gut health has shown that regular intake of naturally fermented produce is associated with lower levels of inflammatory markers and better immune resilience in older adults. In some studies, people who consumed fermented foods daily had more diverse gut microbiomes and fewer gastrointestinal complaints than those who avoided them. I worked with a woman named Margaret, 71, a former librarian from Oregon who had been dealing with chronic constipation and mid-morning bloating for over a year. She'd tried fiber supplements, probiotics in pill form, and elimination diets with little change. We added one Umeboshi Plum after breakfast every day, along with a glass of room-temperature water. The first few days, she found the taste shocking, but by the end of the first week, her bloating had eased. By 3 weeks, her bowel movements were regular for the first time in months, and she told me she felt lighter and more energetic by lunch. That's what happens when you support digestion at the right time with the right stimulus, not with a pill, but with food. Here's how to use it. Buy Umeboshi plums from a Japanese grocery store or order them online. Look for versions that list just plum, salt, and shiso leaf, nothing artificial. Each morning, within 15 minutes of finishing breakfast, eat one small plum. Chew it slowly, pit and all if you can manage, or remove the pit if you prefer. The sour hit will be strong, so sip water after. If umeboshi is too intense or hard to find, you can substitute with a tablespoon of raw sauerkraut or a few slices of naturally fermented pickles, but make sure they're unpasteurized so the live cultures are intact. Do this every day after breakfast, not sporadically. Your gut adapts to rhythm, and the benefits accumulate when the signal is consistent. Now we reach ritual number 3, and this is the one that addresses balance, proprioception, and the silent erosion of coordination that leads to the falls and fractures people over 60 fear most. In Japan, it's called Katashi Ashi, which translates to single leg standing, and it's practiced every morning for 60 seconds per leg, often while brushing teeth or waiting for tea to steep. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but here's what most people don't realize. After 60, the nerve receptors in your feet and ankles that tell your brain where your body is in space, those proprioceptors, begin to degrade. At the same time, the small stabilizer muscles around your hips and ankles weaken from disuse. That combination is what makes you feel unsteady on uneven ground or in the dark, and it's what turns a small trip into a catastrophic fall. Standing on one leg, even for short intervals, forces those stabilizers to activate and recalibrates the feedback loop between your feet and your brain. It's one of the most efficient ways to train balance because it's unstable by design, and your nervous system has to work in real time to keep you upright. Studies on fall prevention in older adults have found that single-leg standing time is one of the strongest predictors of future fall risk. In some longitudinal analyses, people who could stand on one leg for less than 20 seconds had significantly higher rates of falls and fractures over the next 5 years compared to those who could hold it for 30 seconds or more. The good news is that even if you start at 10 seconds, daily practice can double or triple that time within weeks. I guided a man named Thomas, 74, a retired firefighter from Pennsylvania who had fallen twice in 6 months, once on his front steps and once getting out of his truck. He was starting to avoid going out alone because he didn't trust his legs anymore. We started him on Katashi Ashi every morning while he made his coffee. First week, he could barely hold 10 seconds on each leg while gripping the counter. By week 3, he was at 30 seconds with light fingertip touch. By 6 weeks, he could do 45 seconds freestanding, and he told me he felt confident enough to take his grandson fishing again, something he'd been too afraid to do. That shift didn't come from strength training or expensive therapy. It came from 60 seconds a day of practicing the skill that mattered most. Here's your protocol. Every morning, find a stable surface within arm's reach, a countertop or the back of a sturdy chair. Stand tall, lift one foot a few inches off the ground, and hold for as long as you can, up to 60 seconds. Use fingertip contact with the surface if you need it, but aim to let go for a second or two as you improve. Switch legs and repeat. If you can't lift your foot yet, start by just shifting your weight fully onto one leg for 10 seconds while the other foot rests lightly on the ground. That's still training the stabilizers. Do this every single day, ideally at the same time so it becomes automatic. Track your seconds in a notebook or on your phone and watch them climb. That number is a direct measure of your fall risk dropping. Let's move to ritual number 2, the one Japanese seniors do right after waking, and the one that almost no Western health advice mentions. It's called Nodo undo, which means throat exercise, and it involves a series of slow, deliberate swallows and tongue movements designed to keep the muscles of your throat and the base of your tongue strong and coordinated. After 60, the muscles that control swallowing begin to weaken, a condition called sarcopenic dysphagia. You might not notice it at first, but it shows up as occasional coughing when you drink, a feeling that food is sticking, or a need to clear your throat more often. Over time, weak swallowing muscles increase the risk of aspiration, where food or liquid enters the airway, and aspiration pneumonia is one of the leading causes of death in people over 70. Nodo undo directly targets those muscles before they weaken to the point of symptoms. The exercises involve pressing your tongue firmly against the roof of your mouth, holding for 5 seconds, then releasing, swallowing deliberately while tilting your chin slightly down, humming at a low pitch to activate the base of the tongue, and opening your mouth wide, then closing it slowly while resisting with your hand under your chin. These movements wake up the neural pathways that coordinate swallowing and keep the muscles under load. Research on dysphagia prevention has shown that targeted exercises for the tongue and throat muscles can maintain or even improve swallowing function in older adults. In some trials, people who practiced daily throat exercises had significantly fewer swallowing complaints and lower rates of aspiration events compared to controls. I worked with a woman named Doris, 76, a retired teacher from Michigan who had started coughing almost every time she drank water and had stopped eating certain foods because she was afraid of choking. Her doctor had found no structural problem, just age-related muscle weakness. We added Nodo undo to her morning routine 5 minutes right after she got out of bed. Tongue presses, deliberate swallows, chin tuck swallows, and humming. Within 2 weeks, her coughing episodes dropped by half. Within a month, she was eating normally again and told me she felt safer and less anxious at meals. That kind of change doesn't come from medication. It comes from rebuilding the function that was slipping away quietly. Here's how to do it. Every morning before breakfast, sit upright in a chair or on the edge of your bed. Press your tongue flat against the roof of your mouth as hard as you can and hold for 5 seconds. Repeat 5 times. Then take a small sip of water, tuck your chin slightly toward your chest, and swallow deliberately, feeling the muscles in your throat work. Repeat 3 times. Next, place your hand under your chin. Open your mouth wide, then close it slowly while pushing gently upward with your hand to create resistance. Repeat 5 times. Finally, hum at a low, comfortable pitch for 10 seconds, feeling the vibration at the base of your tongue. Repeat 3 times. The entire sequence takes about 4 minutes. Do it every day, and your swallowing will stay coordinated and strong, protecting you from one of the most dangerous and overlooked complications of aging. Now we arrive at ritual number 1, the most powerful practice on this list, and the one that directly addresses the single greatest predictor of frailty and mortality in people over 60. It's called Shinkokyuu, which means deep breathing. But this isn't the shallow belly breathing you might have tried in a yoga class. This is a specific, structured protocol done in bed, before your feet touch the floor, that resets your autonomic nervous system, clears residual carbon dioxide from the lower lungs, and primes your cardiovascular system for the day ahead. After 60, your lung capacity shrinks, the small air sacs called alveoli lose elasticity, and you develop a habit of shallow upper chest breathing that leaves stale air trapped in the lower lungs. That stagnation reduces oxygen delivery to your tissues, raises baseline stress hormones, and accelerates muscle loss and cognitive decline. Shinkokyuu involves lying flat on your back, placing one hand on your chest and one on your belly, and breathing in slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Allowing only your belly to rise while your chest stays still. Then you hold the breath gently for a count of 4 and exhale slowly through pursed lips for a count of 6, emptying completely. You repeat this cycle 6 times, which takes about 90 seconds. The long exhale activates your vagus nerve, the main brake on your stress response, and shifts your body from sympathetic to parasympathetic dominance. The deep, slow breaths recruit the lower lobes of your lungs, where oxygen exchange is most efficient, and the hold phase gives your blood time to fully saturate with oxygen. Research on breathwork and autonomic tone has shown that controlled, slow breathing can lower resting heart rate, reduce blood pressure, improve heart rate variability, which is a marker of resilience, and even enhance immune function. In some studies, older adults who practiced structured breathing exercises daily had better exercise tolerance, fewer reports of fatigue, and lower levels of inflammatory markers compared to those who breathed habitually. The effect is immediate and cumulative. After one session, you feel calmer and more alert. After a month, your resting physiology shifts toward a younger, more resilient state. I guided a man named Vincent, 69, a retired mechanic from Arizona who woke up every morning feeling tight, anxious, and short of breath. He'd been diagnosed with mild COPD, but his pulmonologist said his lung function was better than his symptoms suggested, meaning much of his breathlessness was habitual and muscular, not structural. We started him on Shinkokyuu, 6 cycles every morning before getting out of bed. The first week, he struggled to slow his exhale and felt like he wasn't getting enough air. By week 2, the rhythm became natural, and he noticed he wasn't gasping when he stood up. By week 4, his morning tightness was gone, he felt steady on his feet, and he told me he hadn't felt that clear-headed in the morning in years. That transformation came from 90 seconds of intentional breathing, practiced daily, before his day even started. Here's your protocol. Every morning, as soon as you wake up, stay in bed and lie flat on your back. Place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Close your eyes. Breathe in slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Feeling only your belly rise, your chest should barely move. Hold gently for a count of 4, no strain. Then exhale slowly through pursed lips as if you're blowing out a candle for a count of 6, emptying completely. That's 1 cycle. Repeat 6 times. When you finish, lie still for a few seconds, then sit up slowly and start your day. If counting feels awkward at first, just focus on making your exhale longer than your inhale. If 4-4-6 is too much, start with 3-3-5 and build up. Do this every single morning, no exceptions. It's the first signal you send your body that today will be different, that you're in control, and that aging is something you navigate, not something that happens to you. These 6 rituals, Ashiyu, Rajio Taiso, Umeboshi, Katashi Ashi, Nodo, Undu, and Shinkokyuu, are not complicated. They don't require a gym, a prescription, or a complete overhaul of your life. They require consistency, a willingness to treat your body with the same respect you'd give a machine that's expected to run for decades, and the understanding that small daily actions compound into resilience. Japanese seniors who practice these rituals aren't genetically different. They've simply structured their days around movements and habits that protect the systems aging attacks first: balance, circulation, digestion, swallowing, breathing, and sleep. You can start any one of these today. You can stack all 6 within a week. Which ritual are you going to try first, and what's the one change you've been avoiding that you know would make the biggest difference? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear what you choose.